Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wal aqibatu lil muttaqin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin Rasulullah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wal aqibatu lil muttaqin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wa imamil mursalin. Sayyidina wa maulana Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Allahumma faqihna fid din. وعلينا تعويل وجعلنا من خيرة أمة سيدنا محمد عليه أفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. We seek Allah's protection from knowledge that does not benefit, from a heart that has no khushu, from a nafs that's never had enough, from an eye that does not tear, and from a dua that's not heard. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, apologies, I've just been a bit under the weather, so you're going to hear me coughing a lot throughout the lesson, but it was important to get today's lesson in, the last one before Ramadan. I've not had the best of opportunity for the prep, etc. So anything that I feel that some details that I've missed out, then inshallah when we return after Ramadan, we'll cover it then. But hopefully we will cover the Conquest of Makkah, rounding it off today, inshallah. Before we do, actually, quite conveniently, so the Conquest of Makkah took place 20th of Ramadan. According to, obviously people have different dates of this date, that date, but in the month of Ramadan. Okay, and we are approaching now Ramadan, and with Ramadan comes along moon fighting. So I thought quickly give you a bit of a update, or give you a heads up of what to expect. So the calendars have all been printed out. I only just saw ours as well, actually. If I'd seen it before, I would probably advise to do something different, but nevertheless, they probably will need to amend them again. More than likely, first Ramadan will be on Tuesday, which is probably a bit of a surprise to a lot of you. Now, to quickly, I'm going to try to make it as easy as possible, kind of thing, because I don't want to take long on it. Just got a few minutes here, because we've got quite a bit to get through. But the differences you've got, simple fact is, and I suppose there is a bit more to it, so those that know more about it, they're saying, oh, he's trying to simplify it too much. But what it comes down to is that about actually sighting the moon and just the moon being there, so the new moon being born. Okay, so your new moon that's been born, and then it's got sighting the moon. Okay, and that's the two differences here. So those that follow Saudi Arabia, or the way Saudi Arabia do it, is that more than likely they always go according to the moon's been born. So the moon will be born on Monday. I think it's around about 9 a.m. UK time is when the moon's born. But that doesn't mean it's visible. So it takes a good, I don't know, well, I'm top of my head I can't remember, but I think the probably early sighting of a new moon in the perfect conditions out in sea somewhere was something like 14-15 hours old he had to be. Okay, so it comes down to is when the moon's going to be visible, okay, with the naked eye. Well, naked eye, then some will say, oh, can you use telescope, etc. The discussion goes on and on. But fundamentally what's likely to happen is that if the new moon is born 9 a.m. UK time, so Saudi time, that's what, 12, I think, is it 3-hour difference, or is it 4? It's probably about 1 p.m. So when their kind of sunset comes about, the moon's going to be about 4 or 5 hours old, and it's impossible to view. But then you've got these powerful telescopes or whatnot that you don't need to actually in the conventional way of sighting. So they kind of almost make what's invisible visible, right? So they can technically turn around and say, you know what, it's there. And I think that's what they've been doing in the past. They're saying the new moon has been born, it's there for 4 or 5 hours, we can accept that, let's move on, we're starting 1st of Ramadan. Then you got the other side, they said, well, wait a minute, but you can't see the moon. The Prophet ﷺ says sight the moon and fast, and you cannot see the moon. Okay? Again, when it comes to fiqh element of it, you can argue this way and that way, and both sides can come out with a justification. Myself personally, I've always gone with sighting the moon, but even me, when I see the way things are changing in terms of the new kind of generation is within social media, etc., where it spreads it out like this, whereas previously it was not. People are getting confused, okay? And I think something has to come about, some kind of agreement has to come about. Saudi, whenever you want to discuss with them, they say, we tell you all, don't follow us, follow your locals. But again, people will have their view, but no, it's Saudi Arabia, that's where the Kaaba is, bigger Makkah, Medina, they can't be wrong. Even though the fact that they've, kind of concert after concert in Riyadh and that, etc., but they can't be wrong. No one can speak up about that. But that's a different topic. I think still something needs to come back. So the ulama, the discussion needs to take place. What it comes down to will probably be that, look, we've been doing it all this time like this, and we can't just change. And honestly speaking, personally myself, it's correct, sight the moon and then continue. All of this thing about, how I'm meant to book my holidays and this and that, come on, it's just book 2 days, right? It's nothing major. But because of Saudi keep doing it differently, then people follow them, then they have that split. That's why I feel, even though I feel that it's correct, I feel that maybe there can be some kind of compromise, or both parties need to adjust. And I'll try to make some short videos, which I'm kind of getting into the habit of now. But my personal view, and this, it's important, and like I said, I'll make some short videos, and hopefully people can spread it around, because I want the ulama to discuss this, those that know what's happening, they know things a lot better, much better, much compared to me. And because I remember suggesting this once to my teacher, that we know for a fact that, when it comes to Ramadan, okay, we don't want to be missing a fast, right? If it starts on this date, we start it. I mean, you can turn around and claim, you start early. It's not a fast of Ramadan, but still, never mind, okay? But then how about if there's a fast at the end of the month, then what do you do? You can't make one rule for the start and one rule for the end. You have to stick to that rule, okay? So my take was that let's go with sighting the moon, okay, for Ramadan. No denying kind of thing, here you go. We've stuck with how it should be. Fasting is fard. You won't miss a fast. It's acceptable. When it comes to Eid al-Adha, the big Eid that we call, go according to their formula. Okay, the new moon's born, because there's not much of a risk there. If you understand what I mean, what I'm trying to put across there is that, look, there's not a fard element in terms of you've got to fast, you need to fast. It's Eid, it's wajib, etc. And yes, you have to be on the right day, but then there will be fiqh elements that will say that, well, it's acceptable because of this reason. So I think this would kind of work, because that way as well, when Hajj happens in Saudi, it's a day later. But we also know that, Hajj and Eid, there's no connection there, because we've just been going through the Seerah. And if you realize, we've already spoke about the 2 Eids, but we've not said anything about Hajj yet. And we're coming to the end of the Seerah, and we've not spoken about Hajj. So Hajj has not even been implemented yet. So this understanding of, Eid is the day after Hajj, no, that's just something that it just fell into that position of 9th Dhul Hijjah and 10th is Eid. That's where it came about. So my take is, and I would really love to push this ahead, and I'm pretty sure people will push back at me, and probably name calling or whatever, not, or what is become this, is become that, but stick to the sight the moon, the actual sighting for Ramadan and Eid al-Fitr, and actually go with, that's fair enough, when the new moon's born, Eid al-Adha. Because I think what happens, what's important here is that, yes, we can't get everyone together, but at least we're going to go in small steps. So ideally speaking, the whole country should be doing together. If not, then at least within your city, town, kind of get some kind of agreement. So either Fitr go with this, Eid al-Adha will go with the other formula. So both sides have got, it's 50-50 from both ways. Hopefully that's a solution, and that can happen, because but maybe not, but let's see. That's my take on it, and I've taken a lot longer than 10 minutes, a lot longer than I wanted to. But yeah, so those that follow Saudi, I think more than likely they'll start on Monday, because if the moon's born around about 1 in the afternoon Saudi time, so when they hit their Maghrib time, the moon's going to be 4 or 5 hours old. Although it's not visible, my case. This what I've always said is that as long as you be clear to people, okay, because this it comes about. Oh, moon's been sighted, but it's impossible to be sighted. So just tell them how you've done it. Just tell them it's calculation based. We've discussed this so many times. You could calculate the moon at the time of the Prophet ﷺ as well. But why does he still say the Prophet ﷺ says sight the moon? Okay? There's clarity there. Sight the moon. But just be clear with people. Say, look, we're going based on calculation. At least people know we're going based on calculation. So the likelihood is that Saudi will start on Monday, but those that do it based on moon sighting, actual sighting, they'll be more than likely starting on Tuesday. And when I do the short videos, I'll put up the kind of predicted charts of the world map. And again, that's the prediction based on however it is, in the past, etc. So you can say it's not 100% accurate, but there's a bit of a, how much is it not accurate? So if you've got like a big 10-hour gap, that it's impossible for the moon to be sighted. So that's it's impossible to be sighted. If it's on the borderline or within a few, half an hour, an hour, it could be sighted, it could not. That's when you have to rely on actual sightings. But this one, it's definite that it won't be sighted on Sunday night, which would mean the first fast being on Monday. Likelihood is, well, definitely it'll be sighted because it'll be easy visible the following day. Because then at the same time, when people will start seeing it on the Monday night, they're going to say, oh, that doesn't look like a first night moon. But that's because obviously of the timing of the way when it started. When it comes to Eid, I think more than likely we're going to end up doing it together. But that's my take. Could be different. It all depends on Saudi kind of thing if they start on Monday. I think the others will definitely start on Tuesday. The ones that do based on visibility, but Saudi, do they still go with their formula and say, we're going to still stick to Monday, or they change way a bit, say, no, we're going for the Tuesday. Okay, that's it. Any more questions, you get in touch with me, inshallah. Let's move on then. So the Conquest of Makkah took place 20th of Ramadan. So I'm just getting a few messages here in terms of some issues with the video. We'll carry on. Hopefully it's fine for everyone. So we spoke last week about how the real conquest of Makkah was the conquest of the hearts. Okay. And we spoke also about some of the conversions, right? We spoke about some of the conversions. And one of the things that we spoke about, amongst others, obviously, we spoke about Hind, the incident of Hind, Abu Sufyan as well, and all of this. We spoke about the conversion of Al-Harith ibn Hisham, the full brother of Abu Jahl. And, how he said, oh, thank God that my father's not alive to see a day when a black slave is on top of the Kaaba. Right? And look at the honor Sayyidina Bilal got, where it would kind of ring through Makkah, Ahad, under a big stone that, he's pressed down now. His honor, he's elevated so much that he's now atop of, considered one of the greatest stones. Okay, the Kaaba. SubhanAllah, it's amazing, there's so much that you could say about that. But anyway, that's what he said, and Abu Sufyan's, I'm going to stay quiet about that. Because stones even testify. And then the Prophet ﷺ mentions to them, and he becomes Muslim later. We mentioned that, we spoke about that last week. Okay, so we spoke about that last week. Al-Harith, actually, interesting thing is that a few things related to him. He would ask the Prophet ﷺ, so he would ask questions. So one of the famous questions he asked the Prophet ﷺ about Wahi, revelation, how it came about, or the experience regarding it, and the details around it. And this is where we get the hadith around, how Wahi came about, ringing of bells, etc. The Prophet ﷺ would sweat so much, etc. So we get these details. I think one of the incidents is that when he's actually taking place, and then they call him here. You wanted to know, and here you can see the Prophet ﷺ in his tent, and you can see this is how it is. This is how the Prophet ﷺ is. Ibn Umar, Ibn Umar says that we would love it when an intelligent Bedouin would come to the Prophet ﷺ, because they were intelligent first of all, okay, but they were not shy. They would let out. So the people around the Prophet ﷺ, out of respect, out of adab, they would pick and choose what they asked the Prophet ﷺ. Most of the time, they just would observe, see what the Prophet ﷺ does, rather than ask him questions. Okay, but these kind of people that come about, an intelligent person, especially the intelligent Bedouin, and they'll just ask, and those around them get to learn so much. Okay, so subhanallah, this is what how it was, how the situation was. So even like this kind of question that Harith, he's a new Muslim, he's a new Muslim, and probably not that same when it comes to the rest of them, when it comes to the adab and then speaking in front of the Prophet ﷺ. So straight up, oh, this is the question. But what happens is the rest get to learn. Another thing about Al-Harith is that famous story of, so when he dies, actually it's a famous story of the 3 Sahaba, that they all died without having water. So I think it was the battle of Yarmouk, so it happened after the Prophet ﷺ. And on the battlefield, end of the battlefield, one of these water boy comes along to give him water, because he's like dying of thirst. He's dying in his water. This is how much effort and whatever not it was in the battle. But before he's about to drink, he sees another Sahaba who's there dying of thirst. So he tells the water boy, go to him first. And the other one, I think, was Ikrimah. Another one that we're going to mention later on, Ikrimah. And this is the level that people got to in terms of the martyrdom, shaheed. So the water boy goes to Ikrimah, and Ikrimah sees a third Sahaba who's dying of thirst. He says, no, first of all, go give him. So then he goes to the third one, and the third one says the same thing. No, you give him. And before you know it, the first one dies as well, the second one dies as well, and the third one dies as well. Okay, so this is the famous story, and it's related to Al-Harith. So moving on then, in the Conquest of Makkah, the Prophet ﷺ, he asked Sayyidina Abbas, his uncle, he says to him, oh, where are your brothers? Where are your brothers' 2 sons? He's referring to Utbah and Mu'atib. Now these were the 2 surviving sons of Abu Lahab. Abu Lahab, the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ. So see, the brother of Sayyidina Abbas. So remember, Utbah was engaged to the Prophet ﷺ's daughter, Ruqayyah, and was pressured to break the engagement when the Prophet ﷺ began to preach Islam. So they kind of were hiding away. They were fearful of coming in front of the Prophet ﷺ, based on the fact that they passed enmity, etc. So the Prophet ﷺ took them by their hands, and he led them to what is known as Al-Multazam. Okay, Al-Multazam. It's the area between the black stone and the doors. Okay, one of the areas where dua is accepted. So there's certain places around the Kaaba specifically. Okay, so people should know about when they go for Umrah. There's certain places where dua is accepted. Like that place there under the of course name is now right where water. It's like the drain kind of the drainage system, or when you first put eyes on the Kaaba. So the first time you see the Kaaba, hence why when you're walking in, keep your head down, eyes down until you lead as you're right in front, or at a kind of a bit of a in the masjid, but you can see the Kaaba clearly. Then you lift your eyes, make dua. Dua is accepted. So one of the places is this Al-Multazam, and Ibn Umar kind of mentioned about how the Prophet ﷺ put his cheek, when he would describe it, how the Prophet ﷺ would put his cheek next, onto the Kaaba in between this area, and kind of almost like hang there and make supplications. I know that. Let me just quickly show you some pictures on that, so you understand which area it is. Okay, so that's the area. It's a very tight space, and I'll show you why it's tight space from the next few images. but I'm guessing a couple of people were there. On the left hand side, they've made that area, and this is where a I don't know, whatever security guy or police officer or soldier stands, and you can see actually there's a bit of a rope there as well where he hangs on because people come to kiss the black stone. So this is an area between the black stone and the doors, and you know how it is with the kissing the black stone, and this guy almost has to, well, at times keep pushing away people in terms of kind of move on, but another one in terms of just in case there's a bit of like someone falls, etc., saving people. That's the area there again. I just like a bit out, the image comes out a bit, you can see a bit clearer. Here's another image. As you can see, potentially you can see about a couple of people in between that area. So yeah, see that, and then the final one. Again, maybe a couple of people can stand there. But yeah, that's the area. So this is where the Prophet ﷺ took them. He went there and he made dua. Okay, he made dua. So I just wanted to mention it and show that particular area because that's when this took place. So moving on then, the Prophet ﷺ tells the Sahaba to pitch his tent next to the grave of Sayyidina Khadija radiallahu anha, so his beloved wife, first wife, who he loved so much. Amazingly, you know, he's decided to do that, but people say you should not go to graves. Okay? And again, like I said, there's so much wrong that happens as well, but then correct the wrong rather than kind of a blanket approach. But anyway, the Prophet ﷺ said to pitch his tent next to the grave of Sayyidina Khadija, so that's where he stayed. Okay. We'll cover in terms of maybe after Ramadan, we'll cover what took place after the conquest, because the Prophet ﷺ spends, I think, around about 19 days maybe, in Makkah. So we'll cover some of the other things that take place when the Prophet ﷺ is there. But I just wanted to mention this point. Then what happens is that, or either then or later on, or around by the time the Prophet ﷺ, he has in his mind that there's still one other thing to do. So what he does is he sends Sayyidina Khalid, Sayyidina Khalid ibn Walid, to a place called Nakhla. A place called Nakhla. Now, Nakhla, and it's interesting actually story here, which some of the youngsters kind of like when they're into this kind of stuff. But anyway, so Nakhla is the temple of Al-Uzza. It's the temple of Al-Uzza. So he says to Sayyidina Khalid, the Prophet ﷺ says to Sayyidina Khalid, go to the temple and destroy the temple. Destroy the temple, destroy the idol within it. Kind of come back and tell me what you've seen. So off he goes. He does whatever he does. He, the kind of ward of the temple. He's about what's happening at Makkah. He knows what's coming. So he takes his sword. He hangs it on the idol of Uzza, and he says to Uzza, defend yourself. If you're true, defend yourself. So Sayyidina Khalid comes, knocks down the statue, knocks down the temple, and he goes back to the Prophet ﷺ. And the Prophet ﷺ says to Sayyidina Khalid, what did you see? And Sayyidina Khalid said, I didn't see anything. He said, then, I went and you said destroy Uzza, I've destroyed Uzza. And the Prophet ﷺ responds, then you haven't destroyed Uzza. Go back. You've not destroyed Uzza. Then he goes back again. He goes back again. And again he doesn't see anything. What am I looking out for? And whatever he needs to do, then he goes back again to the Prophet ﷺ. He says, nothing. He doesn't come across anything. And the Prophet ﷺ says, you've not destroyed Uzza, go back again. So then this time he goes back again. This time when he goes back from the kind of, amidst the ruins of the temple, there comes, as Sayyidina Khalid describes, that he says a woman, a naked woman, ebony black skin, long hair flowing out behind her. He goes, she emerges and she comes straight at me, like straight for me. And he goes, I felt a shiver. He goes, I felt a shiver down my spine, like I've never felt before. I felt a shiver down my spine like I never felt before. and I knew this is Uzza. He goes, I knew this was Uzza. Because Uzza was a jinn. Okay, Uzza was a jinn. And he said, look, and Uzza, he said, look, I come to you I'm sorry, Khalid said, I come to you with God. When he says, I come to you with God, and he struck down. Then he goes back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he says to the Prophet, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked, okay, what did you see then? And then the Sayyidina Khalid describes, and he described by his soul, and he described how he felt as well. This was important, how he felt. This is Sayyidina Khalid we're talking about, remember, the sword of Allah, okay, the greatest general after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, probably you can say, okay. And this is Sayyidina Khalid, and he felt that when someone's coming towards him, okay, he felt this shiver, and he described how he felt, and the Prophet ﷺ then said, now you've destroyed Uzza. Okay, now you've destroyed Uzza. When our teacher was telling us about this, actually, when we were covering the Seerah, and he mentioned about his sheikh, actually, and he goes, a similar thing with his sheikh. He goes, so his sheikh's from South Africa. So whether this was in actually South Africa, the event that took place, but I'm not sure. But he goes, look, these people see things, okay, in different ways. These sheikhs, they see things in different ways. But he said, look, once he was called somewhere, and some family were being kind of troubled by something, and usually his response is, it's kind of normal, go see a doctor or something, basically. Yeah, that's why his response is. The sheikh's normal response is that. But this time, no. This time it was genuine. He says, look. And the Sheikh described that, he goes, I saw from the idol. So they found this idol, okay? It was a Muslim family, okay? So they found this kind of idol. And he said, from the idol emerges a jinn. And the jinn emerges in the form of Hanuman, okay, the Hindu god. So Hanuman, when he was asked, what did you do? The Sheikh was asked, what did you do? He goes, I chased him. I chased him away. Not only chased him, I chased his grandfather away. Okay, I chased his grandfather away. So there's this, one of the ways into kind of polytheism is that people see these miracles. Okay, these miraculous things that are being done by jinn, and then they start to worship. Okay, this is what happens. They see these miraculous things and they start to worship them. So anyway, back to Sayyidina Khalid. So the example of this is in the whole of the Seerah. This is probably the only story of Sayyidina Khalid, the only time you come across this kind of story of Sayyidina Khalid, something similar to this when it involves jinn. Okay, and Sayyidina Khalid said to the Prophet ﷺ, Ya Rasulullah, my father used to go to that temple, and he goes, look, I once saw him go to the temple, and his father, obviously Al-Walid, he goes, I once saw him go to the temple with 100 camels and sacrifice them. Okay, and this is a huge amount, huge offering, 100 camels, 100 sheep or whatever not, it's a huge sacrifice. Okay, because he had great faith in Uzza. Okay, so then the question here is that why did the Prophet ﷺ specifically send Sayyidina Khalid? Okay, only to kind of, I suppose, destroy the idol specifically, and destroy it, maybe because it's Sayyidina Khalid at the end of the day. Okay, but maybe it was also there's something else inside Sayyidina Khalid that needed to be broken. Okay, so first, what your father saw. The first question is, what did his father see in the idol? To begin with, his father was not a stupid man. He obviously must have seen something, because Uzza was not just a statue. Okay, there was something there. Why he went and told him, kind of tell me what you saw. Tell me what you saw. He said, look, I didn't say anything. Okay, because there was something there. Okay, there's something that needs to get rid of. Okay, and he had not got rid of it, and that was something that's going to cause a problem. So he kept sending him back, because it's going to cause a problem. So he called Sayyidina Khalid, just a year ago. He called him the sword of God. He sent him also. He sent a person, whose father had particular faith in Uzza. So you got Sayyidina Khalid himself would see Uzza as a child, you know, you can imagine, obviously, the jinn at the end of the day. Right? But you got Sayyidina Khalid here, who, as a child, who went with, you know, look at it from the jinn side of things, that this young lad used to come with his father, whose father used to worship him, and now the same kid has come and killed him. Okay, that same kid has come and killed him. Okay. The jinn must have been laughing about it when his father would come earlier on, but obviously he's not laughing now when Sayyidina Khalid turns up as the sword of Allah. Okay? So that's an event involving Sayyidina Khalid and something that's mentioned and about destroying Uzza. So there's a number of these events, okay, that took place. So everyone enters Islam. Sorry, not everyone enters Islam. You got the like of Safwan, who is now one of the leaders of the Quraysh. He says, look, give me 2 months to think about it. You know, give me 2 months to think about it, and then I'll get back to you. So the Prophet ﷺ told his companions, you know, he's one of the leaders of the Quraysh, and he told them, don't trouble this guy. Okay, leave him, let him go. Don't even say, don't say anything to him. Don't abuse him in any way, whatnot. He'll come around. Now, those that were so that's in terms of, we'll speak a bit about, right at the end, about a few more conversions, but what I want to cover off, and this is the point of today's lesson, and this is kind of, we'll cover off the Conquest of Makkah, is those that were instructed to be killed. So there was a number of people where the Prophet ﷺ, there was a list, these people, wherever you find them, you kill them. Okay, these people, wherever you find them, you kill them. Now, what's important here to understand, that you've got the Prophet ﷺ, you know, look, we see time and time again the mercy of the Prophet ﷺ, the mercy of the Prophet ﷺ. But sometimes you have to show this, you know, this other side, the strictness is important as well. Otherwise, people, everything's like a pushover. Oh, don't worry, forgive us, we can do whatever we want. But when you see this side, oh, wait a minute, oh, hold up, you know, remember this person, what they did with him. Okay. So that it's like people have to be kind of put in their place into, this is it. You know, there's this and this. Yes, you know, the Prophet ﷺ is merciful, shows mercy, but at the same time he shows this strictness. Okay, so there's certain people that wherever you find them, kill them. And interesting thing here is actually that half of those were actually forgiven as well. Okay, but still the word was out there that these people, you kill them wherever you find them. And the numbers vary. It's between 6 and 9. Okay, so we'll cover a few of them, and again, like I said, the numbers will vary. Some will say no, this was on the list. Others will say this was. But regardless, I think we kind of cover the basics of it. First and foremost, first on the list was Ikrimah ibn Abu Jahl. Okay, the son of Abu Jahl. Remember, Abu Jahl, the Prophet ﷺ described him as being the Pharaoh of my people. Sorry, the Pharaoh of my time. Okay, the Pharaoh of my time, and this is his son, who time and time again has attacked the Muslims, led in battle. Just up now, Conquest of Makkah, it was him that brought about a group of people to still attack. He still wouldn't give up. 10,000 coming, he still, you know, can't, no chance. But we're going to talk about him. We'll talk about it. Although he was first on the list, we're going to mention him last because it's a bit of a long story involving him. Another on the list was Abdullah ibn Aqtal. Okay, he became Muslim. So his story is he became Muslim and he did the Hijrah. Became Muslim. He did the Hijrah. Then the Prophet ﷺ sent him out with the Sahabi somewhere for whatever kind of mission or something. On the way, what he does is he kills the Sahabi. He takes all his things, etc., and he fleds back to Makkah. He fleds back to Makkah, and what he does there is excuse me. He purchases 2 lady slaves, poets. So he purchased them, and their job is to poetry against the Prophet ﷺ. So that's what he did. What happens is that his story is so before the Prophet ﷺ has actually entered Masjid al-Haram, the Kaaba, etc., word gets out that he's going to be killed or whatnot. So he goes running to the Kaaba, and he kind of wraps himself around the cloth of the Kaaba. Okay, he comes into the Kaaba, wraps himself around the Kaaba, and this was something, this is the Kaaba, it's sacred, right? Even for them, largely, but yeah, the idol linked, etc. But for the Muslims, they had come to honor the Kaaba. So even them, they thought, this is too much. He's wrapping himself around the cloth of the Kaaba. So they go back to the Prophet ﷺ. They go back to the Prophet ﷺ that he's wrapped himself around the Kaaba. Okay? And the Prophet ﷺ says, still kill him. Okay? Still kill him. And they kill him. And actually the commentators and scholars actually to talk about this, that look, and you'll see a lot of them the ones that went to the Prophet ﷺ, they were forgiven. He decided directly, you know what, I'm going to hang on to the Kaaba, wrap myself around the Kaaba, I'm going to be saved. Had he gone, we have ayahs in the Quran, had they gone to you, Ya Rasulullah, as in obviously interpretations in different ways. But the idea here is that the Prophet ﷺ, those that went to him, they were forgiven. Those who decided not to, what happened to them? Okay. Then you have another Qiyas ibn Subaba, who also actually pretended to be similar to that. He also pretended to be a Muslim to take revenge his brother's death. So he's taking revenge of his brother's death. So he pretended to become a Muslim. He entered Medina, he killed and he fled. Another Abdullah ibn Abi Salah emigrated. He was a scribe actually. He then left Islam and he returned to Makkah, and he started to fabricate lies that the Quran was from his dictation, okay, which is actually used by a lot of these Orientalists. And he would say that I would change the Quran. And I've already spoken at length about when it comes to the Quran and proofs, etc. So we don't need to go into that. Others much more capable of me have done that, and the proofs, etc. So we leave that. But anyway, this is what this particular person did. What happens is that he kind of hides away, and then later on comes to the Prophet ﷺ. Okay? Later on he comes to the Prophet ﷺ when things calm down, to accept Islam. And what happens is the Prophet ﷺ stays quiet. Okay? This is awkward quiet, awkward silence. The Prophet ﷺ doesn't say anything. After a long pause, the Prophet ﷺ says, okay, that's fine. Accepts his Shahada, and then he leaves. And the Prophet ﷺ turns to the Sahaba and he says to them, what are you guys doing? Didn't you understand? What was my first command about killing him wherever he was? Okay, so now and the Sahaba, they're saying, oh Ya Rasulullah, we didn't understand. One says that you should have indicated with the eyes. You should have indicated with the eyes, and the Prophet ﷺ says it does not befit for a prophet to indicate, to kill with eyes. But the point was, you guys should have understood. But yet still, they didn't understand. And once the Prophet ﷺ, because he's merciful, he says, accept him. That's fine. That's fine. But you can understand. So look at what he did. The position he was given, a scribe, and then look what he started fabricating, etc. Lies about the Quran. You can understand all of this. This is why you're going to be killed, which is justifiable. But still, he's saved. And actually, later on, he becomes, he leads the front basically. These people who accepted Islam, okay, these people accepted Islam is like wholeheartedly, and some of their stories then they come about what they did and etc. It's like it's not a case of they just did it to save themselves, and that's really important here. Okay, maybe in this situation kind of thing, they did it to save themselves, but it's a case of, it's not one of those that they were, munafiq in terms of like, no, we're just saying we're Muslims, but behind the scene we're doing X, Y, and Z. No, this Conquest of Makkah, etc. There was so much that they did. Okay, so also what you have is on the list were the two slave girls. Okay, slave girls we mentioned. One was executed and one was forgiven. Okay, one was executed and one was forgiven. There's two slave girls, like I just mentioned earlier on about the poetry. they would write poetry against, speak poetry against the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, this is like the height of propaganda basically at that time. Right? Then you have someone the name of Habr ibn Aswad. Okay, so we mentioned Habr quite a while back basically. Okay, still within the Medinan period. He was linked to the dynasty, linked to Multan, you know, but kind of the history of Multan and the dynasty linked to that. And his story was mentioned when he was involved around, when he poked the kind of camel. Remember the daughter of the Prophet Sayyidina Zainab, and amongst all that, when her husband was captured, and then the agreement of when he was let to go, and part of that was that he had to send Sayyidina Zainab to Medina, and he made that foolish mistake of announcing it, or, you know, out in the open during the day, sending her, and all that crowd got together, and Abu Sufyan said as well, how stupid are you? You know, how can we just do what you do in the daylight, you know, for everyone to see? So he calmed things matters. But see, when she sets off, and the crowd said, we're not going to let her go. This is the daughter of the, you know, the Prophet. Well, they wouldn't call him the Prophet, but this is his daughter. You know, how can we let her go? And this particular person poked at the camel, and she fell off the camel. They suffered a miscarriage. Eventually, he repents and he's forgiven. So he's not executed, because obviously you've got his dynasty linked to Multan, etc. That we spoke about then. So he's not executed. He's forgiven. Okay? He repents and he's forgiven. Another one, Wairis, similar to this incident, but it involved the other two daughters of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There was no miscarriage, etc. But similar thing happened where he was actually executed. He was killed by Sayyidina Ali. Sayyidina Ali executed him. And then you have, second to last, you have Wahshi. Okay? I'm just trying to think here if we've mentioned Wahshi before, but no, probably haven't. So Wahshi, just to give you a bit of recap, is, remember, he's that slave who Hind gave a specific role. All you have to do is kill Hamza. So the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ, the beloved uncle of the Prophet ﷺ at Uhud. So his only job was to track him down and stay close with him, and then he killed, he's the one who threw the spear to kill Sayyidina Hamza. And Wahshi actually becomes Muslim as well. When he comes to the Prophet ﷺ, become Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ says to him, look, it's fine, you become Muslim, but don't come in front of me. Okay, don't come in front of me, because when I see you, I remember my uncle, and you know, it hurts me. You know, it fills me with sorrow. So just don't come in front of me. You can imagine, you know, kind of like a punishment that is, that you cannot come in front of the Prophet ﷺ, you know, hide away. Yes, he become Muslim, etc. But look at the impact of what he did. There are others, the commentators, etc., historians that speak about Wahshi and how he lived his life, and it was not great, etc. But at the end of the day, he was a Sahaba, you know, and so particularly, obviously, I don't like touching upon those elements of it. But yeah, that was Wahshi. What we finish off on, I know we were up to, I ended up taking too long on the moon sighting, didn't I? Moon fighting. This is why it comes about. It takes over your life. We'll finish off on Ikrimah. Okay, so Ikrimah, the son of Abu Jahl, even at the Conquest of Makkah, remember, he alone with his troops attacked the only blood that was spilt in Makkah was spilt because of the attack of Ikrimah. And what happened after that? He fled all the way to the coast. Okay, well, you can probably now what you would call Jeddah, etc. So he fled there. Now Ikrimah's wife comes to the Prophet ﷺ and she enters Islam. She's entered Islam. She comes to the Prophet ﷺ and says that, will you accept my protection? Okay, so will you accept my protection for Ikrimah, so for my husband? And the Prophet ﷺ says, I will accept your protection. You know, so whoever gives protection, you know, to the Muslim, you know, so Muslim, when the Muslims give protection to whoever the Muslims give protection to. Now, bear in mind, It's just a random woman, okay, that has come to the Prophet ﷺ. This is a male-controlled society. Okay, she's just a random woman that's come to the Prophet ﷺ and is seeking protection, to give her protection to the man that led one of the kind of flanks at Uhud, okay, who had just now recently tried to attack the Muslims again. Okay, Ikrimah was the one that the Prophet ﷺ, sees him one day, and one of the hadiths related to Ikrimah. He says, "I saw the Prophet ﷺ, and Ikrimah came with something in his hand, like probably behind like this, he came with something in his hand, and he says to the Prophet ﷺ, if you really are a prophet, tell me what's in my hand, like what have I got in my hand." It's like the Gollum scene, what have I got in my pockets? Okay, I haven't said it properly. He says it better. What's in my hand? And the Prophet ﷺ response to him was, "I'll do one better," kind of, just paraphrasing, but "I'll do one better. Why don't you ask what's in your hand to tell you who I am?" Until he hears, he hears something, and he holds it up to his ear, and he hears the stones reciting salawat, and he throws them away. Witchcraft, he throws them away. This is Ikrimah, who even at Makkah fought, and you got this random woman, Ikrimah's wife, is saying, "I want to protect him from everyone," and the Prophet ﷺ, "I will grant it." Okay, he's protected because of you, even though the fact that he's top of the list, that he needs to be killed, but now he's been protected because of you. Ikrimah, however, is on his way to the coast. He's going to take a ship to Abyssinia. He's going to kind of live out the rest of his days in Abyssinia. So he gets to the coast, and there's a captain, and there's two versions of this story actually. One is that everything takes place at the coast, and one is that actually they set off. Right? So there's a captain, and this captain is, and according to this nation, he's a Christian captain. Okay, he's about to board the ship, and the captain says, "Wait, you need to do something." So he says to Ikrimah, to everyone actually, "You guys need to say something before you board the ship." He says, "You need to say La ilaha illallah." Okay, there's no God but Allah. And Ikrimah is saying, looking at this guy and saying, "Okay, why?" He says, "Because it's my belief that it's God who protects the ship when it's on the sea. I don't let anyone get on the ship unless they testify that there's only one God." And that's when Ikrimah says, he thinks, I suppose the kind of penny drops, okay, light bulb moment, and he says, "Look, if there's only one God on the sea, if there's only one God who protects on the sea, then the same God protects on the land. So how can I testify to this to get on the ship to Abyssinia, but not testify, the same thing to get onto a ship to paradise?" Okay. He goes, "That's when faith entered my heart. Not because of what the Prophet ﷺ said, not because of what Abu Bakr said, Umar, none of these people. No, that random Christian, whether he was Christian captain, random captain of a ship, he could have chosen any of the boats that was going. He chose that one, and that guy says to you, imagine how the message comes, and how the message kind of came to him. How the truth entered his heart, in kind of what way the truth enters his heart. Okay. The other version is that actually they sail off, and the ship, suffer some kind of problems. There's problems, whatever it is, strong waves, whatnot, and that's when the captain says to them all that you need to, you need to say this, etc., or make dua to God, the one true God, Allah, and then that's when he kind of hits him as well. Then that, well, wait a minute. Where am I going to then? If I believe in this, or this one God to save us here, and my idols can't save us, the idols of worship can't save us, then what am I doing all this for? Surely then that's the true religion, and that's when kind of he makes his way back. Anyway, variation of the story, but the outcome is kind of the same. Faith enters his heart, and then he heads back to the Prophet ﷺ. And finds obviously his wife she's put protection on for him, so he goes and he takes his shahada with the Prophet ﷺ. Okay, and the Prophet ﷺ said to him, then he says to him, "Ask whatever you want from this day, and I will give you. And Ikrimah says, I ask that you pray, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives me for all my enmity against you. And Ikrimah said that all the money I spent and battles fought to stop people coming to Islam, I will double that and fight with double effort in the way of Allah. Okay? And the Prophet ﷺ will tell the companions, and actually that's what happened with Ikrimah. Okay, where the Prophet ﷺ tells his companions to not mention or kind of malin Abu Jahl in front of Ikrimah, because at the end of the day he was his father. So you look at still how the Prophet ﷺ was so considerate. Abu Jahl, the biggest enemy, label him as the Firaun of my time, but still, he would say to them, look, be careful what you say. Don't mention him in front of Ikrimah, because it's his father. So Ikrimah now, you might think about these people, just about, and I mentioned it earlier, just like kind of convenience that they're taking Shahada, but there's this thing, all these people that took their Shahada at this time, they lived their lives out kind of like an exemplary belief, they didn't turn around. In 2 years' time, the Prophet ﷺ is going to pass away. They didn't turn around and say, forget this now. None of the people who accepted Islam, handles the Prophet ﷺ at this point, at this time in Mecca, none of them turned away from it. Okay, though something hit them and it entered into their hearts, and it's amazing that this is actually an amazing thing that what was it that made this religion kind of enter their hearts at this time. Ikrimah would go on to become a great general. Okay, he was already a famous warrior. He would go on to become a great general. He would lead the Muslim warriors in Syria as well as in Persia. We just mentioned that story of the water. How they gave everything. Okay, they gave everything. I was just going to mention something actually about us, but yeah, okay, that's fine. We leave it that in terms of there. But just one final one before we kind of finish off is another person that entered Islam around about this time is Sayyidina Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, who would go on to be the last Sahaba to rule the Muslims. Okay, the Muslim world. He was given a great, he just entered Islam. He was given a great honor. He was made one of the scribes of the Prophet ﷺ. So he went back to Medina with the Prophet ﷺ. He spent that, the last 2 years with the Prophet ﷺ. He was a young man at that time. He went back. He lived in Medina. He spent a lot of time with the Prophet ﷺ, documenting the Quran and so on and so forth. Afterward, in the time of Sayyidina Umar, he would go on to be a general. He would lead the Muslim armies into Syria. And Sayyidina Khalid together led the Muslim armies into Syria. And he would go on to become the last kind of ruler, who was the last kind of Sahaba ruler of the Muslim world. And he's the one who actually brought back stability to the Muslim world after a series of kind of very serious fitnas, a very serious period of civil discord. He's the one who brought stability back to the Muslim world. You have the incident of the Sahaba asking the Prophet ﷺ to make dua. The final point here. In terms of that, but another quick incident, and we'll definitely finish off on this one, is that the Prophet ﷺ, one of the Sahaba brings his brother to the Prophet ﷺ, and he asked the Prophet ﷺ to make dua for his brother, okay, that he gets the same reward as he has. And the Prophet ﷺ says, "There's no hijrah after Fatah Makkah." Okay, this is where this statement comes from. There is no hijrah after Fatah Makkah, and there's just so much that we can talk about in there, but I think we'll go on a bit too long. But you understand the gist of it, because I've mentioned it a few times, that reward for the hijrah, when we talk about hijrah, that's gone now. Okay, you can get your rewards by other things, jihad, etc., and all that, or whatever your intentions were, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you reward, but that specifically one, that's gone now. Okay? And we mentioned about how Sayyidina Abbas was the last of those to get that reward. Okay? So that's the conquest of Makkah. Okay, inshallah, we're going to take a break now during Ramadan. I've already mentioned when Ramadan is, and we'll come back inshallah after Ramadan, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to complete the Seerah. the way we wanted to, and inshallah that it's been beneficial to people. And they get to learn something new, or even any lesson you listen to, even one point that you've learned new is something amazing. But what I would recommend is to get this habit on, and I suppose people can do it in Ramadan when we're all that proper hyped up and we're going to be very Islamic. Sometimes we get a bit tired, bored but tired in like this book, reading that book, and sometimes it's easy just to listen to some videos. So if you need to catch up on the Seerah, definitely catch up on the Seerah, and out of every lesson 5, maybe 10 points, and they'll help you remember as you go through. It'll stick to your mind, inshallah. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us and give us tawfiq to enter Ramadan in the best way possible and make the most of Ramadan. What's important is that people have a plan of what they want to do in Ramadan, because before you know it, the first 10 days are gone, the next 10, middle 10 are gone, in the last 10 what happened here, so set yourself some targets, set yourself some goals. This is what I want to do. Any of your kind of worldly affairs that you want to get away with, deal with them beforehand so you're not distracted. You can't obviously completely give up on everything, but this is my routine now, and I need to ensure that I do this and this. I have that in place. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for you. Remember me in your du'as as well. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Wa salamun alal mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.